Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome to the Doc and the Radical program. Peace and blessings, Doc. How you doing?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. I'm glad I made it here safely. That's all I can say. Black man out here in America, and dealing with this heat. This man, look here, man. It is 102 degrees out there.
Ooh, boy.
And I didn't just made a kind of a. I ain't trying to say I'm a punk or nothing, but at the same time, man, look here, I ain't looking at that electric bill until the last minute. I know it's gonna be sky
high. I know that's right.
I mean, it's either electricity or die.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely want to welcome Mellow Cap to the program. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings, Twin Pyramid. Peace and blessings. Welcome to the program. Today, our topic is Black August. We're going to talk about Black Liberation Army. We're going to talk about, you're going to have to help me with this, Doc, because I always screw it up. Symbionese.
Symbionese Liberation Army.
Yeah, Symbionese Liberation Army. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Weathermen Underground. We're going to talk about Patty Hearst.
Okay.
We're going to talk about a lot of different names, known and unknown, because it is Black August.
Yeah.
Talk about George Jackson.
Oh man, look here, Jonathan Jackson, the man child.
Exactly.
Ironically, I was talking about Sada Shakur today in class, and talking about the shootout on the New Jersey State Turnpike, and my students. It's like, how can you be, so unaware?
Right.
And Asada, the only brother, Saeed Shakur, was killed. But you had his other brother, Sundiata Acoli, who survived, okay? And matter of fact, Sundiata was just released, kind of like Mutulu, released so late in their incarceration. But my students were shocked to learn that Sundiata Acoli, Black Liberation Army fame, is a graduate of their university. And I'm like, how are y'all unaware of that? So yeah, it's all good. Let's go.
Yes. And I want to welcome Beacons of Reality to the program. Peace and blessings. We want to welcome Brother Willie Rivers to the program. Peace and blessings. So, Doc.
Welcome all.
This that we call Black August. For me, if we had a choice of choosing February to go Black History Month or August to deal with Black August, of course, I'm going to always side with Black August. That's
I know you. I know you will. Yeah.
That's where all Black people should be. Can you give us a breakdown on what started Black August, who started Black August, and why is it so important?
I can't give you a breakdown on who started Black August. It's just really a celebration of individuals who were freedom fighters within our community, within our tradition, and there was a movie about Black August, a documentary, so to speak, but it's really the most concentrated moment of the fight for Black liberation, and we talk about our luminaries during that time of, the Jackson brothers. We talk about, the Panthers, and all of these cats. And it's like, we can't believe that, how can I put this? We can't believe that these cats behind Black August, and when you look at the names of these cats, we're talking about William Christmas, the Jackson brothers, George Jackson, Soledad brother, Blood in My Eye, Jonathan Jackson, Rochelle McGee, it's in many ways honoring a lot of the brothers who are incarcerated. And
Mm.
I'm gonna try and find this picture that for
Okay.
me sums up Black August in a way that is just, to be honest with you, so phenomenal
Mm-hmm.
that you're kind of hard pressed to have a better image.
Mm.
Give me 1 second. And it for me has always been that image. And we can talk about this brother and
Mm-hmm.
who he is. I have to smile when I even think about him. Let me see, how do I share my screen? Uh, can I share my screen?
Just hit the present and then hit
Okay,
share screen.
okay. So that share screen. Now I hope you're ready for this
Yep.
image, but you gonna love this image. Okay, you trust me. This gonna probably be your wallpaper going forward. Okay, right there. There you go.
Oh, most definitely. Most
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. That
Mhm.
image there is just like incredible. You
Most
know,
definitely.
this brother. It was a different time. And we have to remember Jonathan Jackson was what, 16 years old
Mm.
when that
Wow.
happened. But
Wow.
it's for me a sign of the interconnectedness. I
Mm-hmm.
always, when I have to talk about the idea of American chattel slavery in lectures and in panel discussions and what have you, one of the questions that always comes up, and it's one of the indictments, honestly, because I love Brother Malcolm, but
Mm-hmm.
this is one of Malcolm did us wrong, okay, in regards to
Mm.
this. His analogy of the house nigger, field nigger,
Okay.
okay. Now, okay, that was sloppy scholarship, Brother Malcolm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what he meant by the analogy, but at the same time, that's done a lot of damage. However, a secondary question that we would have to deal with is, how did free blacks feel about enslaved blacks? Were they
Mm.
concerned about them? Did they work with them? Did they, this, and that? And what you're going to find is that there is a significant connection of the freedom fighting that occurs. You got David Walker, you got Mariah Stewart, you got all of these free black folk who are
Mm-hmm.
agitating and fighting for enslaved black folk. The same thing in quote unquote freedom. We have free black folk who have to pay some homage, some attention to those of us who are incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, that's what Black August is dealing with. You're dealing with some of the most revolutionary moments that we have. I mean, when you talk once again, Jonathan Jackson, George Jackson, Rochelle McGee, you see the image right there of Jonathan Jackson, and it was a powerful time.
Mm-hmm.
It was an extreme time, and we have to remember that brother George Jackson was actually sentenced for stealing less than $5 in a purse, out of a purse in a gas station or something like that. And he
Mm.
was given arguably the strangest sentence ever given to any human, and it was 1 year to life.
For $5?
Yeah, yeah. But he was what they called a habitual criminal. He was like a thief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And George Jackson ends up going to prison, and uh, he becomes politicized, and
Mm.
he forms the Black Guerrilla Army, the Black Guerrilla family, while he's
Mm.
there. And they were supposed to be kind of an auxiliary of the Black Panther Party inside of the prisons. They were going to politicize our people, this, and that. And unfortunately, George Jackson was shot and killed by, once again, one of the strangest, dubious assertions ever. They accused Brother Jackson of having a gun on him on a prison yard, hid in his afro. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And it's like, how can I, the prisoners who were there, they said quite simply that what he did was he actually moved away from them because he knew they were trying to kill him. Because this is on the heels of a corrections officer being assaulted, killed, or something like that. And that, and then his brother, his younger brother, Jonathan, who was going to take the judge, the prosecutor hostage. And he was trying to trade them for his brother. That was going to be his plan. So, yeah, revolutionary time, brother. Revolutionary.
Wow.
And the irony, let me say this last part. The irony of George Jackson forging the Black guerrilla family in prison is that it was a member of the Black guerrilla family who shot and killed Huey P. Newton.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Certainly was.
Wow. So, okay. So then, is it correct? Before we go to his question, I just want to ask: Is it correct?
I'm seeing his question.
Yeah. Is it correct then that Huey died because he was buying drugs? Is that correct, or that's a lie?
That's correct. Huey had an addiction problem, and Huey was actually still in his mind Huey P. Newton of the Black Panther Party fame. And ironically, I was talking about this earlier today in class. We talked about Black Power, and who do you think paid for that food for the free breakfast for children program? Who do you think? Where do you think those funds came from? Because we're talking about Panthers being between the ages of about 16, 17 up to maybe 22, 23. They called Eldridge Papa Rage because he was 28, 29. So this is a young organization, an organization of Black youth. So the question comes, and this is the actual question I'm presenting to you, who do you think paid for the Panthers community service program, especially the free breakfast and free lunch programs?
I thought they just raised the money and came up with the stuff. That's what I thought.
How did they come up with it? They did raise the money. How do you think they came up with it?
Going door to door, hey, we're raising money for, our Black children breakfast program. You want to donate? That's how I thought they did.
No, they went to businesses and business owners and entrepreneurs and asked them for donations. If it was a grocery store, they would ask them for a certain amount of eggs, some food for the kids. But a big part of the Panther fundraising in the early part was that if you were doing business in the Black community, you had to break off some bread. And the business I'm talking about is prostitution. Pimps and hoes. They had to give some money. Okay. If you go back and you look at the long version, the extended version of the movie The Mac, that was filmed in Oakland. Okay, they had to pay to film there, and the Panthers took that money, those donations, and they actually used them for the community. Later, to show you the veracity of what I'm talking about, the counterintelligence program is going to encourage the state of California to bring Huey P. Newton up on extortion charges because they consider that extortion, that if you don't give money, we're going to shut you down. Okay. and the producer director of the Mac, they refused to press charges and what have you.
Mm.
But yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I want to welcome Jughead number 1 and Mayat to the program. Peace and blessings. And Jughead number 1, Doc, got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
It said, please explain how Brother Malcolm was incorrect of his analysis. Malcolm was correct. Love and respect from UIK.
Okay, I think that's the UK, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't really like people from the UK, to be honest with you. There's one person that I really don't like from the UK, and my students tell me that I'm hating because it's Idris Elba. I don't like Idris Elba. And took one of my best girls to the movie. She disinterested in the movie until Idris come on the screen, and she moving forward talking about okay, might need a ride home. Okay, let me deal with this idea of Malcolm's construct. And once again, I understand what Malcolm was saying, what he was attempting to say and to convey, but in many ways it's been taken as gospel, and it's proven to be very divisive to how our people consider what they consider. What Malcolm was saying is that there's some black folk, and he really should have contemporized what he was saying, that there's some black folk who are so in love with white folk that they will do their bidding for those white folk, that they get some goods and some benefits off of those white folk. Now, if we go back to the institution of American chattel slavery, this is why I find issue with Malcolm. Number one, who do you think the cook, the women who were working in the house, who do you think they were married to?
You're talking about the slaves, right?
Yeah, enslaved. I don't call them slaves. I call them enslaved Africans, stolen Africans. Who do you think those women were married to?
Enslaved black men.
That were probably working where?
In the field.
In the field. Okay. Now, let's go to the fact that these people are so arrogant, and power adds to arrogance for people. They're so arrogant that they talk about their plans.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about everything in front of the quote unquote wait staff, in front of the cooks, the waitresses, and what have you, the servants, people who are serving them. Mm-hmm. Now, who therefore had the most information about the comings and goings and movements of white folk?
The house slave.
Those in the house. Now, keep in mind, these house slaves were married often to those in the field. They more than likely produced some children. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are as a parent, you want better for your children, unless you're insane.
Right.
So if there came an opportunity for your child to escape, who would have the most information about, y'all should leave on this day because they're leaving for Thanksgiving and they won't be back until January 5th. Who has that information? That information is the house slaves. And you can't tell me that our people would not, even if they were working in the house close to white folk, okay, would not pass that information on so their children and their loved ones could have a better chance at running away. Oftentimes the house slave could not go with them because the moment they don't show up in the morning, they know something is up. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about this idea of the house slave having it necessarily easy, well, they weren't in that hot sun picking cotton, tobacco, or rice, or whatever the cash crop was that was being developed. However, who has it better, who has it worse, is a game that I won't play, because when you're talking about, especially black women, beautiful young black girls who are in the house, You think these decrepit old men ain't whispering nasty things in their ears? If we look at
Mhm.
Linda Brent's story, Harriet Jacobs, she's 13 years old, and her owner is trying to break her will. He knows
Mm.
that he could her if he wanted to, but he wants her to submit.
Mhm.
Okay. And so we have a situation of close proximity. And we can never forget the sexualized nature of American chattel slavery. For instance, white women, we refer to them as the lady on the pedestal. White women
Mhm.
are not to be touched. The wives are not to be touched unless it's for reasons of procreation. The first sexual experience of white boys, the first several, was actually with a enslaved black girl. And
Mm.
to make matters even more troubling than that, you were considered a good host if people were traveling. And I mean, you have to remember there are no automobiles, so if people are going to travel for Thanksgiving, they're not going to come one day and they're going to leave. They're going to be there
Right.
for several days, if not several weeks, into Christmas. You were considered a good host if at night when I went to bed, you would have a slave woman in my bed for me to have sex with. So
Mm.
at the same time that I get once again Malcolm's analogy, and I understand what he meant, but many of our people are taking that as the gospel, okay, and saying, well, yeah, this, the you a house slave, blah blah blah. The house slave was instrumental to any escape attempt because he was the one that knew. She was the one that knew the comings and goings of white folk. It's information that can be shared regarding an insurrection. So it's what it is.
Mm. 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 Could another way, Doc? Because I was thinking about that as well over the weekend. Could it also be where Malcolm
Okay, what
described,
Malcolm meant? Okay, go ahead.
yeah, how he described the house nigga,
Hmm.
where he says, he's the one that says, "Are we sick, boss? Are we sick?
Yeah,
Is
but
our house on fire?
what I'll say about that, and I'll say it in response to the Jughead one with the point that he just made. Um, he writes that those servants were also in a position to betray their brethren and sister. Very true. Okay, but also field slaves as well. If you go back
Mhm.
and you look at Nat Turner's rebellion, you look at Gabriel, you look at
Mhm.
any of these rebellions, the vast majority of them were betrayed by other slaves in the field who were trying to get out of. I mean, oppression is oppression. They're trying to get from under the yoke of oppression, and they will do anything. Many times, people will do anything to do that.
Mm.
You got to remember with the Jewish Holocaust, we saw Jews volunteering to dig ditches. They're trying to be of some utility to get out from under the yoke of what the National Socialist Party was doing.
Mhm. Wow, interesting, interesting. And the thing that I was saying is Malcolm gave a definition, sort of say, or examples of what the house nigger would be saying.
Mhm.
Our house, we
Yeah,
sick. And like
yeah.
Malcolm said, you
What's
had
wrong?
these
He
house
said,
niggas
yeah,
today saying our astronauts.
yeah.
Um, could it be just to those who think with the hour, meaning that they have
Most certainly. I mean, it's and I think that you're verifying what it is that I'm saying. It's less about the location, the geographical location of one's exploitation, and more
mhm,
so about mentality and mindset. Because you can be a betrayer from the field, because you're going to hear about the escape attempt. And
mhm,
if you want to curry favor with them white folk, go up there to the house and let them know they're going to try and run the night, boss.
mm,
There's no difference. That's a
mm,
mindset. And it
mm,
doesn't even have to be a position of honor. It could be a me that if I turn y'all in, I am going to get me some semblance of freedom or reward. It's in many ways what meritorious manumission rested upon.
Yeah,
That
that's
if you
what I was
did
about to
something,
bring that up.
yeah, if you did something that was valorous, something that was, extraordinary, then boom, you might go free. So I it still bothers me because many people they betray the spirit of what Malcolm was actually saying. He's talking less about a house slave versus a field slave and more about a mentality of us against them.
Mm, 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 mm. Wow, definitely, definitely. I want to bring up Mayat's point that she wrote. She said, "I'd rather be in the field shoveling shit than be in the house. I read Harriet's autobiography. It was heartbreaking what they did sexually to our mothers."
Certainly. Certainly. I mean, it explodes that construct of the house slaves having it easier than field slaves because you're right there next to them
Mm,
all day, if not all night.
mm,
So when they love Jones come down, you better perform.
mm. Wow, wow.
But let's get back to Black August, brother. Let's get to the revolutionary.
Definitely, definitely. That's why Mayat says whistleblowers got to be the first to go where liberation is concerned.
Yeah.
Most
Whistleblowers, period. Not just those that's working in the office, not just those that's working on the shop floor. Yeah, period.
Period.
Because there isn't there one has to really think about the level of psychosis and identification with one's enemy for you to think that if I could just do something that would separate me from the others. That's foolish.
Definitely, definitely. And then Jughead number one says, "You need to monetize your channel, Brother Maurice. Some of my West African forebears were instrumental in capturing my FBA family. I would like to contribute. Consider it my personal reparations." Well, one thing is for sure, we've been always asked, people have always asked us that we should monetize the channel, but we believe that education is free. This knowledge you're not going to get in school, you're not going to get, nowhere out there. You go search for it. We're going to go ahead and give it to you because this is your right. This is what belongs to you. And so we never put a price on it, but we appreciate the comment. We appreciate the sentiment and the deep felt love. Definitely. So, Doc, to get to that point that you was just saying, because Frantz Fanon mentioned something about the poor in one of his, in I think
Black Skin, White Mask, or the Wretched of the Earth.
I think it was the Wretched of the Earth. Whereas the poor is the ones that's the mask of the movement, but yet also that's where the betrayal comes in as well, because they can be easily manipulated by the enemy.
Yes. I mean, Karl Marx talks about it. Marx refers to that population as the lumpen proletariat. And he says you're being foolish and you're playing with fire. Anytime that you have a humongous part of the lumpen proletariat as a part of your organization, it's what the Panthers did. Okay? The Panthers go ahead and have this situation where they get the brothers from the block because those who were in college were not seeking to do anything with the Black Panther Party. So they had to get the brothers from the block. The problem with that is that, number one, they're economically poor. And people who are economically poor have to make some decisions. And these decisions are not going to be the easiest decisions to make. Sorry about that. They have to make these decisions, about sometimes about will they eat or will they not eat. Okay, so they're also always in contact with the police. And if you go back and you look at Panther history, you look at the history of Black Power, what you're going to find is that William O'Neill was an informant. He was a brother that had got caught stealing a car and joyriding and crossed state lines, which made it a federal charge. And he ultimately is going to provide the blueprint that leads to the murder of Chairman Fred Hampton. The Panthers are full of these individuals. I'm not going to talk about us and Milana Karinga. The Panthers charged that Milana Karinga's his entire organization were full of agent provocateurs and snitches and what have you. So in every way, when you're talking about this idea of betrayal, Frantz Fanon says it, Karl Marx says it, that if you put too many of these types of individuals, especially in centralized positions, important positions, they're going to betray you. And we got to remember, I'll focus on O'Neill because I know that he's the one that most people are familiar with. O'Neill is the head of security for the Black Panther Party, Chicago chapter. How dangerous is that? Here I'm in Houston. Here in Houston, they tried to start their own Black Panther Party chapter, but it's ultimately going to be shut down by the Central Committee, the national leadership, because word came from, and get this will blow your mind when we're talking about Black August. Word that the gentleman who was trying to start the chapter in Houston, he was an informant, a snitch, and that word came from the brothers who were locked up because he was known as a snitch. So here you have someone trying to start a chapter that is an informant, and that chapter was shut down, and the Houston brothers and sisters created something called People's Party 2. And People's Party 2 was headed by a gentleman, and get this name, okay, although there's no relation, his name is Carl Hampton.
Wow.
And Carl Hampton's head of security was a police informant.
What?
And Carl Hampton was killed on Dowling Street here in Houston. They shot, Houston Police Department shot Carl Hampton from the top of a black church, a major black church. Shot him with hollow point bullets, ripped his organs apart. Okay. All right. And to show you, just how convoluted the story can actually be, it was two sisters who approached, because what had happened, there had been a conflict between Carl Hampton and the Houston Police Department. And they had said that Carl Hampton, he had some kids who were selling the Panther paper. And the police officer, one of the kids thought it would be funny to go ahead and sell a paper to the cops. So, he goes up to the police. Houston is segregated. 5th Ward, 4th Ward, 3rd Ward are basically black. Okay. And the officer tried to take the papers from them. And Carl Hampton happened to be standing there and wasn't going to allow that to happen. And so the officer tried to make a move, and Carl Hampton pulled his weapon. The cop that was driving tries to get out. And Carl Hampton told him, if you get out that car, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill the passenger. I'm going to kill you, boy. Okay. They leave, but they put a warrant out for Carl Hampton's arrest. They blocked off Dowling Street in the black community for weeks. No police were allowed in there and what have you. And they had a negotiation for Carl Hampton to surrender, and he would surrender, and they would just give him a fine. They had talked about this behind doors, closed doors. Well, on the day they killed him, there were two sisters who came, and they told him. They said, Carl, some white men on top of that church down there. And just imagine being on the side of the street where the church is. Okay. So he's walking down the sidewalk and he couldn't see because they're on top of the church. So he's attempting to increase his angle to view, to see what's going on. And when he does that, they shoot and kill him. Okay. Wow. And they rush Carl Hampton to the hospital, and and Black Houston is up in arms. They ran, okay, to the hospital to donate blood to save Carl Hampton's life. He's their local Huey P. Newton. That's when they found out that he had been hit with, and keep in mind, we're talking about the early 70s. He had been shot with hollow point bullets from rifles. Ripped all of his organs up. They couldn't save him.
Wow.
So he's a brother. He's another brother that has to be mentioned with Black August.
Man, it's like I think you said. I think you were quoting Huey when you said about the revolutionary that they're already dead or something.
He's a doomed man.
Right.
Yeah, revolutionary is a doomed man. I mean, he'll either die trying to execute the revolution and get killed on the battlefield, okay, or he'll succeed and no longer be, no doubt, deacon of reality, and be of no utility, no use to the people that he was trying to serve. So that's basically the revolutionary. If you go back and you read Huey P. Newton's, he titled one of his books Revolutionary Suicide. If you read his poem Revolutionary Suicide, it is one of the most awesome expressions of revolution that one could ever have. Most people are shocked to find that some Panthers wrote poetry. Some of the male Panthers. Huey wrote poetry. Bunchy Carter, head of the Slausons, he wrote poetry. He would have the Slausons show up at a party, shut the party down, stand up on the table and start reciting his poetry, and wouldn't let them start boogieing again until he was done reading his poetry.
Doc, what is this? I guess fascination maybe with this Marxist Leninist theory. What you see these revolutionaries leaning towards these ideologies? Why? Yep. Why is that?
Well, I mean, they understand something that is crucial to understand, that there's strength in numbers. Okay. Same thing that Marcus Garvey was telling folk. You're not black. You're a person of African descent. The moment that you stop looking at yourself as being black is the moment that you go from being a global minority to the global majority, because there are more persons of African descent on the face of the planet Earth than anywhere else, than any other group. So when you're talking about this gravitation towards revolutionary theory and revolutionary thought, you got to really think about how many comrades and allies do you have if you begin to solely focus upon blackness. If you solely focus upon blackness, you have, black folk are 13% of the American population. How many of them are revolutionary? And can they execute even a revolution domestically, let alone globally? So what many of these brothers are talking about is to expand our understanding of who our allies are, that our allies are not just people who look like us. Many times our enemies look just like us, But our allies are a larger population of individuals who are fighting a class struggle against capitalism around the globe. That is, and they believe that, and they're correct, that it is capitalism that is the enemy of working class and poor people. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're seeking to get involved with that. That's why you see the Panthers reading Frantz Fanon, um, Fidel Castro, Mao Zedong. They're reading a who's who of truly revolutionary literature. They're
Mm-hmm.
operating out of the greatest tradition. And one last thing about the Panthers, you got to remember that the reason why um, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense actually garners so much attention from J. Edgar Hoover is not just the free breakfast for children program, but the
Mm-hmm.
fact that the Panthers formed an alliance with white groups like the Peace and Freedom Party, the Weathermen, these
Mm-hmm.
wild SDS white boys who were going to literally change the climate of the nation. They call themselves the Weathermen. So
Mm-hmm.
the the battle is less so about race, and it's more so about class struggle. Yet the Panthers and all other black groups, we and black leaders and intellectuals, we understand very clear that we're still black, and these people that we're fighting with and that we're trying to form an alliance with are actually still white, and they've still been inundated and socialized and propagandized into whiteness, and that's a hard thing for them to trump.
Mm. Definitely, definitely. So then, they were not, if I'm understanding you right, they were not leaning towards those ideologies
Who's they?
because that's where they wanted to really be, but they were looking as far as,
Wait, who is they?
the Black Panthers, the
Okay,
Black Liberation Army.
okay.
Um, oh, shit, I gotta go see about this dog. I am so sorry. I gotta go run and see about this dog. But can you explain what I'm think
Go
I'm
ahead with the
getting
question.
is
What's the
that
question?
they were leaning towards there, not to say black people we should be Leninists or Marxists or this or that, but because it was more support in their number groups that it would be better. They would have a bigger backing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's really what we're talking about when we talk about revolution.
Come here.
Black folk have to make the decision as to, are we talking about revolution, which would be a complete overthrow of the existing system, or are we talking about reformism? Do you really believe that we're going to be able to reform America into being something that it was never designed to be? And if you do not believe that we're able to reform America into something that it was never intended, into something better than what it was ever intended to be, then you got to be a brother that's talking about the idea of revolution. And the idea of revolution is overthrowing capitalism. The idea of revolution is a workers' paradise, getting all workers together so that you're not dealing with the idea of economic exploitation of workers. Look at what's going on right now with UPS. Their
Mhm.
workers are on the verge of striking because of what? Pay and work conditions. Take a look at what's going on, and it's one of the reasons why I don't believe that I should have to pay a cable bill, because there are basically no new television programming occurring because the Screen Actors Guild and also the writers are striking. What are they striking about? They're striking about wages and better work conditions.
Mhm.
So, in every way, when we're talking about the idea of revolution, you have to be talking about a redistribution of the profits that are being made off of the backs of working class and poor people. And that's what the Panthers are talking about. That's what the Black Liberation Army is talking about. A radicalized redistribution of wealth. And you got to
Mhm.
remember that Americans hate socialists.
Mhm.
Americans hate communists. And the reason they hate it is because they've been taught to hate it. You know, it reminds me of a joke that Richard Pryor said. Richard Pryor said, "Look here, I don't even know no communists if they ain't got that hat on."
Mm.
But really, what we're talking about when we're talking about revolution, we're talking about a restructuring, a reordering of society.
Mm.
Period. Nothing more, and nothing less.
So when we're dealing with the Black Liberation Army
Wow.
was made up from people who came from the Black Panthers, right?
Yes.
So am I understanding that it was like the Black Panthers, they talked the rah rah rah, yeah, we'll shoot you, we'll do that, you know, but the BLA was the real deal that said, yo, you done earned this ass whooping, and so we coming to give it to you.
Yeah, I mean, well,
the graduation.
but see, yeah, but see, you have to remember that there is an ideological schism occurring within the Black Panther Party, and it affects the Panthers. It affects the creation of the Black Liberation Army. It affects the creation of the Black guerrilla family, the brothers and sisters who are going to be politicized while they're incarcerated. The schism, the ideological schism, and many Panthers to this day, the older Panthers, they fight against this, but this is actually what happened, is that Huey P. Newton and Eldridge Cleaver is the Minister of Information for the Panthers. They don't see eye to eye in regards to the path forward. Okay. Eldridge is in many ways white America's belief that he will be that he is the reincarnation kind of Malcolm. Because Eldridge is, when people think about Black Power, you shouldn't think about Huey. Okay, Huey's not a great speaker. Huey's a intellectual. Huey's up there talking about, and think about the brothers and sisters off the block, and Huey's up there talking about dialectical materialism. You get what I'm saying? Exactly. They can't follow Huey, but Eldridge is a different beast. Eldridge is one of his greatest battles is with Ronald Reagan when Reagan was the governor of California, and he would start his speeches off. And keep in mind, Eldridge is on probation, so Reagan can send his black ass back to prison whenever he wants to. Eldridge would start his speeches off with "Fuck you, Ronnie baby." He told Reagan that he was so soft he would beat him to death with a marshmallow. Okay. All right. But Eldridge, Huey is in many ways, and this is relatively speaking, Huey's talking about patience. Huey says the people are not ready. In many ways, he's very much like the most honorable Elijah Muhammad in regards to, I'm not going to send my people out here to get slaughtered. Eldridge is more like Malcolm. Let's do it right now, baby. He wants revolution in the streets immediately. And Eldridge he's the Panthers can do it to white radicals. The white radicals love Eldridge. Okay. You go back and you read his great book, Soul on Ice. Okay. He's, in as far as lecture goes, speaking and being eloquent, it's Eldridge that represents Black Power. Eldridge tells people that if you don't give money to the Black Panther Party, and this is at a rally, if you're not gonna give money to the Black Panther Party, I hope some big dick nigga in the alley slits your throat and takes the money. That's Eldridge. Okay, that's Papa Rage. All right. Yeah, Mayat is correct. Yeah, Eldridge wanted to he wanted revenge on white folk, and he said, what's the white man's most prized possession? Is woman. And so he plotted and planned to execute rapes of white women, but Eldridge doesn't want to go to prison. So Eldridge practiced on Black women first,
What?
And after getting that process down, he was unsure as to if he was that good of a rapist or if it was that the police department didn't investigate the rapes of black women. Well, he moved on to the real deal, and he ends up raping his first white woman, and he got caught. So that answered his question. But Eldridge is what they would term a war hawk, and so you have to think that the Panthers are going to have some who agree with Eldridge, some that agree with Huey. Kathleen Cleaver, who's Eldridge's wife, has this great quote where she says, Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale and Elaine Brown should be brought up on murder. The victim, the Black Panther Party, because they disagreed with that. And so you have this schism, and you wind up finding a lot of individuals on the East Coast, the New York, New Jersey area, who were supposed to be the hitters for the Panthers. And they are fashioned as the Black Liberation Army. And in pretty much any time that you hear the name Shakur, you're dealing with someone from the Black Liberation Army. Afeni Shakur, Mutulu Shakur, Asada, Oglubala Shakur, still exiled in Cuba to this day. So, yeah, there's a schism, and some people went one way, other people went another way. We had the murder of Samuel Napier, one of the Panthers, by a rival Panther group. So you have a lot of things that are going on within the Black Panther Party, and then the fact that there's an expectation of uniformity, but there's never really a execution of that uniformity. Panthers in the Bay wore the leather jackets in the berets, which was a French Revolutionary group's outfit, and Panthers in New York wore these chains and these necklaces with these bullets on them, and they called them Panther bullets. And you're just kind of like, the Oakland Panthers, like, we ain't never heard nothing like that. Mm-hmm. And then you had the brothers in Chicago who were wearing fur coats because it gets cold in Chicago. They ain't wearing no leather jacket out there. Dealing with that Lake Michigan weather. So yeah, so those are just some of the insights of what happened with them.
Wow. And so, Doc, there's, I would say, this natural progression, because we saw this with the ANC, where you do the little talking, but that shit ain't getting nowhere. So now we're moving on to armed struggle. We're moving on, about to pick up that gap, and we about to light you up. Mm-hmm. In that process, mm-hmm. does anything get lost from the message of, we were talking, now we about to whoop that ass? Is there anything lost from going from one point to the next, or does the people really see that as, yes, that's our only option, that's the next thing logically?
I think that when the context and the situation changes, your actions and your solutions have to change. Your strategies and tactics are going to have to change. Mm-hmm. And the and then you have to also remember that the playing field is changing. Okay, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, the Cali Panthers, mm-hmm. they lose the right to carry guns within 9 months of their existence. You have a state assemblyman from Piedmont by the name of Donald Mulford, and Donald Mulford is going to introduce legislation that is popularly remembered as the Panther Bill. But once that's passed, it is no longer possible for citizens, because you have to remember, you hear this term, and it reminds me of Kool Moe Dee's recording, The Wild Wild West. Cali was the Wild Wild West. And you could carry a a loaded, unconcealed weapon in Cali with no problem. It was a part of their state constitution. And you could, at the exact same time, carry a concealed weapon. It just couldn't be loaded. But once the Panthers had, in February of 1967, the Panthers had their state capitol moment where they ironically ran into Ronald Reagan. The Mulford bill is revamped, made tighter, and passed. And so you can't, that situation changed. So the California Panthers had to, in many ways, put the gun down because they were afraid that Oakland Police Department, especially LAPD, would use that as a means and a reason to slaughter them. That here, you know, in the law, the Mulford bill actually removes citizens' rights to carry guns within city limits, not outside of cities, because California, of course, has a huge white hunting population. But within the city, yeah, you can't carry guns anymore. And so when you're talking about the rules of engagement changing, yeah, you're gonna have to alter some things. But when you're talking about the Black Panther Party and you're talking about class struggle, you're in many ways talking about an idea of violently overthrowing the United States government.
You know, I want to go back to this comment that Jughead number 1 talked about. He says, correct, brother manhood. Fred Hampton was killed because he was planning to unite serious Africans and serious whites. The U.S. government was afraid of another Bacon's Rebellion, 1676. You know, I was always, when I start to learn more and more about Hampton, I never agreed with that, joining them.
Joining white groups?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because one, you just can't trust them. You know, you can't trust them at all. And I watched, you know, of course, on the videos and stuff. But when they killed Fred Hampton, did the whites do anything about it?
Yeah. You know, actually, yeah. Yeah. You have to remember that in the wake of Fred Hampton's assassination, it is the white clergy at first who stepped forward and referred to it as legitimatized murder, and say that law enforcement no longer has any authority at all to say anything about Black men, Black power, Black fighting back. So yeah, you do have that, but you have to remember that Chicago's a different beast. Okay, it really is, because when you're talking about the idea, and it's sort of the exact same thing that can be said for the Bay Area. Those two places are the epicenter for white radicalism. So you have white brothers who are in every way as radical as the Black ones. You got to remember when Fred Hampton was arrested for stealing $71 worth of ice cream bars from the Mr. Icy truck. Okay, it's white attorneys that go and help get him released. Okay, and you have to really think about it, that despite what can be said about Black activism and the Black voice, our voice is nowhere near as loud as theirs. Okay, who we got? Quan LX. You get what I'm saying? Who's gonna speak for us? It's a similar reasoning behind Freedom Summer. They didn't want Black collegians down there for Freedom Summer that weren't from the South. They wanted white folk from elite Ivy League institutions to come down there, because in many ways, the Joneses, we are a great people. Okay, salt of the earth people. But if a Jones come up missing, the Joneses are gonna look for him. Let a Kennedy come up missing. And so in many ways, what you're seeing out of Chicago is, yeah, them white brothers and sisters, they stood up. This is the moment of radicalism, you know, and you see a lot of trials, of political trials, at the Democratic National Convention of 1972. You have a situation where these white radicals from SDS are going to be arrested, and so will Bobby Seale,
Right.
and put on trial. So there's a lot of, it's not necessarily racially antagonistic. However, we still know we're dealing with white folk. And Huey P. Newton says this, and I believe that this might be one of the greatest summations of interracial alliances. He says black groups that are afraid to form an interracial alliance with white folk is really showing their sense of inferiority.
Say that one more time, Doc.
He said that black groups that are afraid or hesitant to form alliances with white groups that are going in the same direction they're going are showing a bit of inferiority. You have an inferiority complex. Huey says there's nothing wrong with forging an alliance with whites who are going in the same direction that you're going. However, the moment that they need to go right and you need to go left for your best interest, the alliance is over. Use them for what they're good for, and once that has expired, move on. And if you come up with the idea that they're trying to run that white man hustle on you, there is no alliance at all. You don't forge an alliance with groups like that. But groups like SDS, groups like the Weathermen, and the Panthers had trouble with those groups, even though they were the most radical of the white groups. So the moment that the alliance was no longer working and of a good utility, it's over.
You know, the thing is this, Doc, is like, for me, you know, I believe what I believe, and there's some KKKs, Nazi skinheads that will agree with everything I say, right? Except for them being the devil. They wouldn't agree with that, but separation and all that other stuff, they would agree 100% with what I believe, right? And if the government fell down and everybody fighting doing this or whatever, and you know, and you get you an alignment, yeah, we're gonna do this, and it's like, but in the back of your mind, you better be thinking, yeah, after y'all kill them, you better turn and kill them real quick, because they coming to wipe your ass out. So, you know, they coming to kill you. That's going to be their agenda at the end of the day. How can we kill them and kill them in the same ticket, and it'll just be great?
Yeah,
but how do we can't afford to trust it?
Okay. Fred Hampton. He would open, and Jesse Jackson stole this. Okay. You know, what's Jesse's organization called? The Rainbow Coalition.
Right.
Okay. Fred Hampton would, and we got him on tape, on video doing this, okay? He would always start his speeches off with Black power for Black people, brown power for brown people, red power for red people, yellow power for yellow people, white power for white people, all power to the people. And what Hampton is in many ways saying is that if we liberate the people, the workers, and everybody has their own, it's kind of like a nuclear war. If 3-4 countries have nuclear armaments, nobody can use them. So it's not a thing of trust. It's more of a thing of being able to deter them from doing, and as you know, I will use the lexicon of my Nation of Islam brothers, what is in their nature to do.
Definitely. When we're looking at the Black Liberation Army and the Symbionese Liberation Army, what are the differences between the two?
I don't know a lot about the Symbionese Liberation Army outside of them. They're the ones that took Patty Hearst, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know much about the Symbionese. I know they took Patty Hearst, and somehow they got that white woman to, what did they call it? What syndrome? Stockholm syndrome. Yeah. No, I can't tell you much about the Symbionese Liberation Army outside of they was robbing a bunch of banks and had that white woman up in there robbing banks with them. I was like, oh, they gonna get these brothers forever. Reminded me of Malcolm when he was casing them houses. And Malcolm Jarvis said, yeah, the time we got was not for the crime we did. It was because we had white women with us. You done bamboozled and brainwashed a white woman. Yeah, they're going to get you forever, brother.
All right. Well, we got our brother from the UK on the line, Jughead number 1. Peace and blessings, brother. Welcome to the program.
Yes, peace and blessings, brother Morris. Peace and blessings to brother Leonard and guys in the chat. I thought I'd call in to wish you a great book. I mean, it's fantastic, brother Morris, because I've seen you before on YouTube. You were up for a while. And I love you because you're such a warrior, because your concept before was so powerful. But for some reason, I mean 3 years ago, before pre-COVID crap, you were quite prevalent. Now it seems like you come back now, which is great. So I'm glad you're back on YouTube. And I've got some questions for the guys in the chat regarding Malcolm. Now, but then say about myself. I'm Black British born from Nigerian parentage. Pan-Africanist from one of Garvey colours. That's my ideology, Pan-Africanism. And as a Pan-Africanist, I mean, as Malcolm was changing, we left the nation, was it 63, 64, for his untimely murder. That's my leaning towards Malcolm. That's my Malcolm, Malcolm for his death. That strong Pan-Africanist Malcolm. And your opinion, brothers, this is my opinion, please give me your insights. When Malcolm went to Africa and the Middle East to unite, he first was going to charge America with genocide, the UN, and after reparations. And based on that, he was going to Africa, went to Ghana, Libya, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, where my family from. He was like putting a team together to form an alliance. That's when he was killed. One day, you used to say this guy was from, with African Americans and an African. We got to kill this guy. I've always said that, brothers, African Americans, I've last 20 years, you're the best blacks on the planet. You've been the most creative blacks on the planet, as a fact, whether it's in business, science, politics, your courage. You've been the leaders. No blacks come close. That's a fact. That's not being as a fact. When you put your creativity with African resources, it's all over. That's why Malcolm was killed, because when you put the genes of Black Americans with African resources, it's all over. That's why he was killed. What's your opinion on that, guys? What's your opinion on that?
Yes, sir. Doc, I'll let you go first. Did you hear everything, or you need me to repeat it?
I need you to repeat it, brother.
Okay. He's asking what is our opinion of what Malcolm, and then Malcolm joining up with our African brothers and sisters, Malcolm with the brains, them with the money, joining together to get things accomplished. He's asking, is that the reason why he was killed? And he wants to know what's our opinion about that.
Oh, you know why he was killed. You just don't want to talk about it. The idea of Malcolm and Pan-Africanism, I mean, it's those Garveyite roots. The idea that we're not Black, you're not Puerto Rican, you're not Dominican, you're not Cuban, you're not Brazilian, you're not even a Black Brit. You are a person of African descent. And it's a revolutionary thought. And it's one that, having been to the continent repeatedly, I can tell you it's one that, for me, is the correct way to go. And I think that what John Henry Clark said holds true to this very day. And it is quite simply that you'll never be free until Africa is free. And so, following that line of thinking, my brother, I would have to say that our battle, because there is no continent, there is no nation that has been more, and I refer to this as the way that I imagine God created the world. I believe that God just deeply French kissed Africa and left everything in Africa's soil that we would need to build a nation. Now we got to get to the point where we're educating our own. We have to manufacture consent. We have to teach our children that they are African. We have to teach African children. We have to teach Ugandans. We need to teach Nigerians, Igbo, Ghanaians, Sierra Leone, that we're African and that we are truly one people. And to knock down so many of the psychological barriers that we've had as a people, of one nation going against another nation and no one wanting to really work in cooperation. I mean, we saw that with W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, the black intellectual class did not want Garvey here because, and Du Bois goes so far as to call him a foreigner. So, which makes Du Bois's adoption of Pan-Africanism shortly after so ironic. So in many ways, what I think about Malcolm and the idea of Pan-Africanism, it's a marriage made in heaven. It reminds me of a joke that Paul Mooney said, where he said he was talking to his Native American brothers, and he told them, he said, "Don't sign shit till you talk to us." Okay, I think that the Africans need to take that verse, because nobody knows this white man like we know this white man, but we need for both sides to go ahead and to basically embrace each other in every semblance of the word of embrace, without any reservations, without any hesitations, without any geographical limitations. Now, in regards to is that why Malcolm was killed? Brother Maurice knows that I have my own group of individuals, I believe, that killed Malcolm. Okay. However, I'll say this, that if that group hadn't got to him first, I believe this other group that we're talking around and talking about would have done the job. That there were forces beyond American soil that wanted that brother taken out, and that's a definite fact. That Malcolm, like so many of our other freedom fighters, were able to escape the domestic borders, not only physically, but also psychologically, intellectually, and forge alliances with other freedom fighters around the globe. I yield, brother.
Yes, sir. And so, my answer to that question is definitely yes. And I think that we definitely have to build on that. That's one reason why, our thing about taking power in the state of Mississippi, because we got to have that. And if we have, the financial backing of our brothers and sisters from the continent, that would definitely greatly increase our reach and our scope of being able to open more factories, being able to produce cars right here in Africa, in America, in Mississippi, to go ahead and produce tiny housings here in Mississippi, to do these things, to grow our economy so that we can do those things, because the war that will take place, and it is not a point of, do we think we're going to have to fight them? We know we're going to have to fight them, but we got to be able to have our own hospitals, because we can't get injured and then go to their hospitals and expect them to take care of us, expect them to return us back to the fighting field. We got to have those hospitals so that they can fix our injured and get them back to the fighting field. So yes, we definitely believe in that. I even attempted to get on the Pan-African Council over there, but they said I wasn't a leader yet of a group. And I said, well, you just give me a few more years and you'll see me in power, and then you'll come running to get me on board with you.
Exactly. Brother Morris, I mean, you and your kids are I tell you what, because I don't know your back. I'm embarrassed because one thing I've got feeling like Korea, Vietnam, brother, if you look on the passport of Vietnamese, look at Vietnam, they fought Japan 25 years. The 2 decades, America for 10 decades, for 10 years. And 6 years of fighting. Small part of Vietnam. That's what Africa big Africa to Vietnam. Korea went to America in 1553. Teeny Korea. Teeny Korea went to America. It's embarrassing, We look at, Afghanistan, Ghana, war for the 1940 USSR. Afghans are peasants. Look at Africa allowing teeny France to run France to bully us. It's embarrassing. You know, sometimes I think people think I'm being harsh. I'm not being harsh. But look at these other groups like teeny Cuba, Vietnam, Korea, punches above their weight.
Mm-hmm.
So people bigger, more powerful than them. We've got no excuse. Africa has no excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Africa has no. I'm saying that as a black man. I'm telling the truth. I'm not being harsh about people. I'm telling the truth. Africa has no excuse. Look at teeny Korea and the courage of Koreans, the Vietnamese. I said the benefit of courage and tenacity.
Mm-hmm.
That's the standard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so we feel far short. We've embarrassed you. We left you behind enemy lines, outnumbered, outgunned. And despite that fact, we only in the party. We betrayed you. We left you out. That's why some of my FA family are angry at us because I'm not blaming them because we've left you behind enemy lines, outnumbered and outgunned. That's the change.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I was bridging that gap, that's why I was killed with our Civil War brothers. Let me slow down. Afro Americans, you've got about 20 years, you've been the best blacks on the planet. That's a fact. In business, look what you saw. There's Elijah McCoy, Benjamin Banneker, Louis Latimer, I can go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
But George Washington Carver, in science, business, in entertainment, you've been the leaders, you're the spearhead. So that's why if you came to Africa, you came to Africa in those numbers, we'd have 50 black Qatars right now.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have 50 black South Koreans right now. And when the Europeans, they know that. That's why they're half sure to keep us apart. That's why that coup must have never. That American, I can't forget his name. Andrew Young. That devil. I hate him the most because when Malcolm was killed, when he went to America, all the seeds that Malcolm planted, he outrooted them and said, we don't need you help Africa. Back off. Stay out, America will help us. And that's why Jimmy Carter came up that position. He betrayed you. He's one, not only was also, but him and Jimmy Carter, they're instrumental in keeping Africans and the Africans apart because they know that if Africans came together with Africa, your creativity and our resources, as before, it's all over.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make damn sure that we keep apart. That hasn't changed now because, you know, as you said before, Brother Morris, you're correct. The war's coming because if you look at Africa in the past, I'm a historian, Brother Morris. 100 years ago, you were betrayed. Look at after the 20th century, three presidents of your country, Calvin Coolidge, Woodrow Wilson, and what's your name?
You still there, brother?
Poland, everything to space you. After space, you have new reconstruction, you build towns and cities without help from America. They were just that, so it's not fair by your prosperity. There's Biden's coming for Europe to the space you. It didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's happening again now. Look what's happening at the border. And something's coming to America, trying to displace you. That's what they'll plan for you. They're planning genocide. Malcolm warned us, they're planning genocide. So they have in Africa as well. If we're not careful, we have to be careful because I look ahead at the head of Brother Morris and Brother Manhood. You know, I see that their game plan. It's all planned decades down the line, not years, decades down the line. We have to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So,
That's true.
yeah, let me slow down. Let me go a bit down there. Let me calm down a bit. I give myself a stroke, man. So our potential, we should be, you know, let Africa be our size, our resource.
We lost our brother, Doc. I don't know whether he hung up or the line just dropped, but we lost him. Hopefully he'll call back.
That brother calling from the UK. You know,
yeah.
you know how much space is between here and the UK? Come on, man. I'm honored that, you know, our brothers and sisters from across the ocean, across that water, is called.
We got him back now, Doc. Okay, peace and blessings, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I'll keep it short because there's so much more recorded. I wasn't on the line, but just to say that, you know, great having you back over us. We missed you. I mean, you were pregnant back 3 years ago. You were silent, and then you came off. I don't know if you still removed you or what. I looked at your past. I can't find any of your past videos. They always look at be back in us. That's good. Manhood, sir, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate your insights about the manhood. And I'll go offline now. Listen, I feel like I'm calm down a bit. I do get to be a bit passionate. We got to calm down a bit. I'll listen offline, okay, brothers?
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, dear brother. Yes, sir. Peace and blessings. All right. So, I do want to say this. Yes, that, I was off for a while because I had got sick with COVID. And so that took your brother down a while. But we're getting back in the stride of things. So, when they took down the other channel, then all our videos we had that was there are all gone. So it's like we're starting back over. But we're getting back in stride, and we appreciate you. We definitely love you.
Certainly.
Keep tuning in. Call in anytime that you're available. We're always here. This channel is your channel as well. This is our channel, and this is our house, and we always have to protect our house. Doc, you wanted to add anything to that?
Yeah, it's really humbling to have someone, because I know it's 11, 12 o'clock over there. I remember when my sister was here and she was, talking about how late it was. But it's humbling. And it really harkens me back to Garvey, to the idea that we're actually one people. And you just got to be open and receptive to people and to their experiences and what have you, But I'm still trying to, work my way through that accent, that British accent that they have, and to see it coming from an African is just like wow. And it's in many ways the same thing of this Louisiana Creole Geechee accent that you see these white folk down here. They sound like black folk. If you close your eyes, you swear you was talking to a brother. If you talking to someone from Louisiana, yeah. And so I applaud that brother, and I really appreciate him. And do me a favor, brother Jughead, if you happen to come across Idris Elba, push that brother down or something. Do something for me. We gonna have to do something to that brother. That brother, come on here looking that good.
Definitely. And I want to welcome the Forecast Radio. Peace and blessings, big bro. We're glad you're here. We want to welcome Nama X. Peace and blessings. We're glad you're here as well. Welcome. Doc, I want to go to a video and then come back and we'll discuss.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Now, this first video is the FBI briefing on the Black Liberation Army. Whoops.
The scene has become far too common. A mob swarms the Arkham gas station on Alondra and Central.
Here we go.
Now, the Black Liberation Army was a splinter group off of the Panthers. The Black Liberation Army said that their difference between them and the Black Panther Party is that the Black Panther Party was a party of political apparatus, above-ground political apparatus, and organizing and politicizing in the open by whatever means is necessary and advantageous, while the Black Liberation Army moves in a military manner to carry out the politicization to its logical extension, which is action. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is there's a close association between the Weather Underground and these radical black groups, folks, and it can't be ignored. There's a trial that's beginning this summer in San Francisco. I helped San Francisco PD cold case get that case indicted. There was a killing of Sergeant Young at Ingleside Station, where members of the Black Liberation Army showed up tried to use a law. You know what a law is? A light artillery weapon. It's like a bazooka. It has like 7 safeties on it. And the good part about it was they weren't smart enough to figure out how to take all the safeties off to blow their way into the Ingleside station. So they tried to blast their way in with the M16 rifle, and it didn't work. So they ended up just running to the window behind which the desk sergeant was sitting and sticking a shotgun through the hole in the window and blowing Sergeant Young away. That place was cased, you know, I'm sure it'll come out in trial, by a young white female to come in and make sure what was going on. I don't think we could ever prove it, but I'll swear up and down that that was a Weather Underground female operative that came in and cased it. And they also had the getaway car outside that spirited these guys off. The trial will be very, very interesting.
All right, and so now we're going to go and show America's Most Wanted clip about what he's just talking about.
Good evening. Just days ago, the San Francisco PD swooped down on a group of guys they wanted real bad. They've been after them for more than 35 years, when a killing spree ignited San Francisco in one of the wildest and most turbulent times in the city's history. It's been 35 years in the making. This moment caught on tape by America's Most Wanted.
Hey, Richard, you cop killer?
This former radical and San Francisco city janitor now under arrest for conspiracy to kill a San Francisco cop. The story goes back to San Francisco in the late 1960s, the center of anti-war protesters and those fighting for civil rights. The establishment, especially cops, were considered the enemy.
We had a sergeant who was killed by a pipe bomb that was lodged outside the station. And that was the first we saw that there is real violence and terrorism that was pointed towards police officers.
And it wouldn't be the last. 5 officers were murdered in a 20-month period. They were even targeted while paying their respects to a fallen officer when a bomb went off before his funeral.
This was anarchy. This was really the first of guerrilla warfare that we started seeing in San Francisco.
The whole black nation has to be put together as a black army.
A group claiming responsibility for some of this escalating violence was the BLA, the Black Liberation Army.
The Black Liberation Army was a faction of persons in the Black Panther Party.
Robert Smith, a professor at San Francisco State, has written a number of books on African American politics.
The Black Liberation Army, in its writings, began to argue that you needed to begin an immediate attack using force and violence to bring down the American system.
Kill the damn cop! Kill the damn cop!
The center of the BLA's revolutionary strategy was to assassinate as many police officers as possible. On August 29, 1971, cops say the BLA snuck up on the quiet Ingleside police station.
It was a normal, slow Sunday night.
Nina Lipney had been a clerk for only 6 weeks.
I was sitting at my desk. I was typing a report, and
2 carloads, maybe 4 people in each car, who had 12-gauge shotguns and 9mm assault rifles, creeped through the park area.
And I heard a loud noise. I looked, and I saw someone looking through the open hole in the little plexiglass wall.
They then started firing 9mm rounds from a semi-automatic assault rifle and more shotgun blasts at the door.
I was wedged in a little teeny corner in this cabinet, and I felt vulnerable because the shots just kept coming. Once I got the radio in my hand, and I said, Code 33, this is Ingleside Station, the sergeant's been shot, and I have been also, please send an ambulance.
John Victor Young, a 22-year veteran on the force, would not survive the attack.
In all of my 33 years in police work, I would say there is nobody that really matched him in his outreach to the community.
Jordan, a former San Francisco police chief, was a pallbearer at his friend's funeral. And to this day, he says everyone on the police force feels the huge loss. The murders of Sergeant John Young and 5 other officers killed at that time have haunted generations of San Francisco police officers.
You have a city that remembers that a police officer was killed. Those people must be held accountable.
Chief DeBoss, how are you?
San Francisco Police Chief Heather Fong has made it her mission to bring those responsible to justice. And now this week, more than 3 decades later, police around the country swooped in, rousted them out of bed, and picked up 8 former members of the Black Liberation Army. 3 in New York, 2 in Los Angeles, 2 in San Francisco, and 1 in Florida. Henry Watson Jones is the oldest at 71, a part-time real estate appraiser. Police claim they plotted to kill Sergeant John Young and could even be linked to the murders of several other San Francisco cops. Ronald Stanley Bridgeforth, believed to be one of the 2 getaway drivers in the murder of Sergeant Young, is on the run. He's seen here in this FBI age-enhanced photo.
He is a black male, and based on his date of birth, he would be in his early 60s at this time.
Bridgeforth could be in East Africa or France. And cops would also like to talk to the unknown white female who entered Ingleside Station just minutes before the assault.
Her reason for being in the station was to make a police report, but we don't know if she may have seen something.
In 1971, she was 20 to 23 years old, 5'8 to 5'10", 130 pounds with light complexion, shown here with 2 hairstyles. Newspaper reports say that she may have flashed a signal before the attack. If you know anything about this woman or the whereabouts of Ronald Bridgeforth, please call our hotline right now at 1-800-CRIME-TV.
All right. So we could see, Doc, that the SBLA, Black Liberation Army, they wasn't no joke. They had a damn a law that you put on your back and you fire. We fired those in the Army, and they was trying to fire that at the police station.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you, when them brothers say they about that business, they about that life. They about that life.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a different time, man. And let's be fair and let's be honest about this now. We ain't really got access to no damn rocket launcher. Okay, so that came from the connection with them white radicals. They're out in the middle of the street. It's 1960s identity politics. Them white boys was very serious that they were not, and I mean not, going to Vietnam. And that's just what it is, So they're fighting a war at home about having to be forced to fight a war abroad, So it was a different time, and there were a lot of violence going on during that time. Like I said, Eldridge Cleaver's, those who sided with him, they wanted revolution right now. They didn't care nothing about no talk. Huey's talking about community service programs, letting the people, get stabilized and things like that. There was a segment of Black America that was like, the hell with that. Let's just go up here and blow up the whole police station. And in all likelihood, this white woman that they're looking for was working with them. When you think about the escape of Assata Shakur, now if there has been an escape from a prison and it's involving Black power rights, they shut down every road. So the question becomes, how did she get out? And the answer is, she was hidden in the trunk of a car that was driven by a white woman who was one of these white radicals. and they saw she was a white woman, and they waved her ass straight on through the checkpoint. Didn't even check her car. So once again, that's why I say, there's some areas that white radicals can get into that we can't. And there are, I think that if you look at some of the radical thought of our people, multiply it by 2,000, when you get a truly crazy radical white person, they liable to go in there and blow up the whole bank. Who has access right now? There's some white folk who have rocket launchers sitting in their garage.
Exactly. Definitely. That just I could if the BLA was up and active today, and how these damn crackers are shooting our people down, oh my God, I think it would be World War III. And
well, it would not just be black radicals. It would not just be the Black Liberation Army doing it. These are some of these white radical, weathermen type white boys who just are not going to stand for whatever reason, maybe it was the heart that God gave them when they were born and forged, but they ain't going for it. And we got some brothers who, to borrow the phraseology of No Limit Soldiers, that's about it. White folk got more. They got some that just, no, you ain't gonna do them like that. And there will be serious consequences and repercussions. And so it takes me back to the question that you asked, where you said, when Hampton was killed, did any of them stand up? Yeah, they did. Okay. Now the question becomes, where are the truly radical white folk today? And we don't have very many. I haven't come across very many truly radical revolutionaries. I come across some who might want radical reform, but to be talking about overthrowing the government to the point that you get a rocket launcher and you go over there to the police station and try and kill everybody up in there, I don't see them right now. Okay, and it's one of the reasons why all of these cameras are out here. I believe these Ring cameras and all that. I mean, just really think about, looking at your Ring camera and you see a brother standing out in the middle of the street with a rocket launcher, getting ready to, to blow. Because my brother, who was fighting Fred Hampton in Chicago, he was the head of the Gangster Disciples there. I can't think of his name right now. That's what he went to prison for once. That he had received from the allegation was he had received rocket launchers from Muammar Gaddafi or somebody, some African leader. Jeff Fort. Yeah. And the allegation is they were going to start shooting down commercial airlines as they left O'Hare Airport. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what they locked him up for.
Yeah, I remember. I read that. That's what they said. That's what the FBI claimed, that's what he was going to do.
Rukin.
Exactly. The thought of, and because people ask, well, if you was going to fight America, how would you do it? You couldn't do it on a head-to-head thing. You couldn't do it. You would have to do it by a guerrilla fight. You hit them here, you move, hit them here, you move, you hit them here, you hit them here.
If you go back and look at some of these strategy manuals, and we actually have some strategy manuals that you can look at, talking about urban guerrilla warfare.
Right.
Many of these people are saying that we would be unstoppable because of guess why? Project buildings. That you could be up in the project building is just picking them off left and right.
Definitely. Our What surprises me, and I think Nama X mentioned it. Let me go back up here in the comments and see really quick. Is that they, all these years later, they wind up getting caught. You know, it's like, how do you do that? And then next thing you know, you get caught. It's like they didn't really plan properly. I can't find the statement that was made, but basically that's what, because they didn't plan. They didn't, you know, you're going to execute something like that. It will behoove you to make sure that you plan properly. Yeah, here we go. These revolutionaries did not plan out their life correctly. You know, and something like that, to be able to do it back then, and you made it all this long time, 30 years later, and then they swoop down and catch you. That's lack of planning, lack of proper planning. And then, you know, even when we look at the shootout, that the well, let me wait until after. Let's get to that video first. But about what do you think about that, Doc? What Nama X says, that the revolutionaries did not plan out their lives correctly.
I mean, I could agree with that. That's actually one of the most significant complaints that Tupac Amaru Shakur had about his mother. That we had a situation where the revolutionary class, after the revolutionary years were over, they had nothing. You know, there is no, as Paul Wall said, there is no 401k for a gangster. You know, so in many ways they are kind of left out of there. These are the anti-capitalists. So materially, they have very little, if anything, accumulated. Now, as far as planning out their lives correctly, I mean, I feel differently. I go ahead, I got to tip my hat to these brothers. I mean, they was able to get away with this for 30 years. This wasn't no halfway thought out thing. What has probably happened is that somebody has made a deathbed confession, or made a confession to prevent being put on their deathbed, and have given these brothers names. Now the question becomes, let's be very clear. Can you prove it? It's been 30 years.
Right.
Can you prove it? Now the allegation is there that this is what they did, but can you prove that? And so only time would tell as to if you could actually prove in a court of law with a cross section of the community that these brothers actually did it. So I look at that differently. I you know, they did it, and they went on and lived regular lives. You know, what can you know, what else could they do? You know, only so many of us can make it to Cuba and live under the, you know, the safety of the Cuban people.
Interesting. I would have thought, because, you know, me, if you make it to the getaway point, you got to have a plan after that. And if like what you said, if somebody gave
But I mean,
them up,
what kind of plan?
you better have something.
I mean, give me an example. I mean, because it's not like they went in there and robbed a bank.
Well, it's like, okay, give you an example. Like when I went AWOL.
And
me and my brothers and sisters sitting around talking about, you know, well, how you going to live? What are you going to do? You know, and I was like, well, you know, before they start coming looking for me, we can get me to Texas or someplace like that, and then I can get me a fake ID and, you know, and live like that and never
become
use
a Mexican?
Huh?
You gonna become a Mexican?
No, get me to Texas and I blend in with the black people in Texas. Just give me a fake social and a new ID.
It's not a good plan, brother.
No,
you don't have a Texas accent. That ain't a good plan, man. and down here, they cliquish down here. If you ain't one of them, you probably ain't gonna make it, man. You probably have a better chance of making it right where you at. where you can just truly, where you know the lay of the land and what have you. You know, because if they got you under surveillance and they bring some crawfish out and you look at them like I do, like, oh man, what are these red roaches, and refuse to eat them, they go, oh, that's him right there for sure.
Well, definitely, we would definitely have to do some type of planning. But you know, everything is real. Everything is real, and you know, like my story, when we figured out, all right, well, shit, it ain't nowhere to go, then it's showdown time. You know, we went up in there and said, hey, y'all let me go or we gonna kill you right here on the spot. Ain't no ifs, ands, and buts. That's the negotiation. Freedom or death. It ain't no other ways about it.
I mean, you can do the Jonathan Jackson, you know, during that time, but you know, nobody survived but Rochelle McGee. You know, that's, you know, when they come, oh, they coming, and they're not gonna stop coming. And that's the there's a level of trouble that Black folk can get themselves into that no Black person who has any power would dare attempt to extricate them from. And that's part of the problem. Whereas when you look at some of these white boys that escape, you know, they go out into the woods of Washington State, you know, and they had a law enforcement people lightweight scared to go up in there trying to find them.
Yeah.
Because his ass is like Rambo or some shit, Jason Bourne.
Right.
You know,
right.
You know, one of the things that, and I mentioned this earlier in my class, that one of the proudest moments I have for my people is that Assata Shakur was able to stay underground without being detected for years. Black folk didn't tell. Black folk didn't run and tell, although we did have some who tried to find out where she was, you know, with the idea of going to tell on her.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't know where you go and you're Black and you're able to survive long term. It reminds me of that moment in Queen and Slim where they went to that Black juke joint. The bartender gave them the drinks and said, listen, we know who you are, but you're safe here. We need a maroon society where we can run to and white folk can't touch us. You know, we ain't got that right now.
Exactly. That's what we were trying to build down there in Mississippi. You make it to Mississippi, God damn it, you safe. You all right now.
You know how bad off you gotta be if you gotta tell a Black man that if you make it to Mississippi. They just think about what you just said. That brother be like, oh no, I ain't sure.
Oh boy, that's true. That's true. You say Mississippi, boy, people like, oh nigga, no. Nigga, are you one person I said, nigga, are you sick?
Exactly.
You talking about Mississippi? Are you sick?
What's got 4 eyes and can't see? Mississippi. I gotta come up with a better plan than escaping to Mississippi.
We're gonna take another look at. We're gonna take a look at this next video, and this one is about the Symbionese Liberation Army. So let's check it. Let's look at that and come back and talk about it.
I got a call about 3 o'clock in the morning to respond in patrol uniform.
It was May 17th, 1974, South Central Los Angeles.
A little old lady comes up and she says, are you looking for all those white people with guns and ammunition?
It was the clue that broke open a nationwide mystery.
It was a yellow house with white trim.
That led to the biggest shootout in LA history.
Because there was such a volley of fire, it scared the hell out of me.
What happened next actually took root months earlier, hundreds of miles away in the Bay Area.
There's been a big kidnapping on the West Coast. The victim is Patricia Hearst, the daughter of newspaper executive Randolph Hearst and a granddaughter of the legendary William Randolph Hearst.
It was February 1974 when the Symbionese Liberation Army, a self-styled militia, kidnapped publishing heiress Patricia Hearst, a crime that captivated the nation, and took an even more shocking turn when Hearst joined her kidnappers.
I'm beginning to feel that the FBI would rather that I get killed than safely released. I have chosen to stay and fight.
Hearst next showed up on a San Francisco bank surveillance video, participating in a robbery, armed with a semi-automatic weapon. With the $10,000 they stole, the SLA headed to Southern California, where they shot up an Inglewood sporting goods store. In a bid to get survival supplies, the getaway had gone bad.
And the community at that time was about 95% Black. And they offered up all kinds of information to our detectives.
Information that led police to 54th and Compton and to the yellow house with white trim with the intriguing possibility that Patricia Hearst might be inside. Al Preciado and Ron McCarthy, retired LAPD colleagues, directed the on-scene SWAT response that day 40 years ago. You can see Preciado at the base of the front steps, close enough to hear the SLA leader talking inside.
I could hear CQ giving orders to his people, a lot of profanity, saying that we're not going to give up. There was about 26 commands given to them to surrender. The lieutenant fired several rounds. They opened up with gunfire that was unprecedented in Los Angeles police history. It was just so loud and so many rounds at one time going off. It sounded like a bed sheet being torn and being ripped.
And they had fully automatic weapons.
They converted semi-automatic weapons to fully automatic weapons.
LAPD had semi-automatic.
We had semi-automatic rifles.
So you're really
shotguns,
at a disadvantage.
and a .38 revolver.
Police deployed tear gas.
A lot of the tear gas grenades that were being tossed would bounce off the window and it would roll down to my feet. And I was trying to kick them away from me.
The overpowering amount of tear gas filled the air and sickened everyone.
I can't. Man, I know how you feel.
Law enforcement soon realized the SLA members inside the house were determined to fight to the end, with people in South LA trapped in the middle.
Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, kid.
As far as I can determine, and you've got as close as I have.
Look out there.
That's bad. That's bad.
It was one of the first live breaking stories broadcast on television using then new technology. The shootout attracted thousands of spectators. We had 19 SWAT members and
500 patrol officers, yeah.
But the LAPD firepower was quickly depleting.
We ran out of ammunition. And so
you ran out of ammunition?
Oh, yes.
I ran out of ammunition in 5 minutes.
Oh, my.
I think Albert fired more rounds than anybody, and I think he had 594 rounds.
Law enforcement decided to throw more tear gas into the house, which touched off the large amount of ammunition inside.
Chemical agent smoke is white. When we put the chemical agents in the back, black smoke came out. Fire erupts.
Police were surprised to receive return fire, even as the house erupted in flames.
They had 35 millimeter film cans with C4 fused, and they threw those out because we'd hear boom.
The chopper is overhead observing the fire is raging.
Eventually, the house was engulfed in flames.
The obvious conclusion is that the Los Angeles police have indeed found the nesting place of the Symbionese Liberation Army, and there's not much left of it now.
There's not much left of it now, Bob.
When did you know then that it was done?
The house was collapsing on itself.
Okay. The standoff lasted 2 hours. 6 SLA members died. Police estimate that over 9,000 rounds were fired by the police and the SLA. In the charred remains of the home, law enforcement found rifles, pistols, and shotguns, but no Patricia Hearst. Hearst was not in the house during the shootout. She was eventually captured 16 months later, hiding out in Northern California. She'd served 2 years in prison for her role in the SLA. 4 decades later, it's a moment etched into LA history. After 40 years, looking back, what does this mean?
for the city of Los Angeles.
The fact there were no citizens injured, there were no police officers injured. And our unit was a very fledgling unit that didn't have a lot of equipment, did not have a lot of training, and yet we're successful because of the teamwork, and we can still survive and do this job without getting anybody injured.
All
The
right.
Hearst family has been
So,
wealthy.
I want to play another video, and this will be the last one. But this is Patty Hearst's eulogy for the SBLA, who we just watched get burned to death in the house. She's doing the eulogy. This is Patty Hearst, the white woman that was kidnapped.
Based on the information contained with our interviews with witnesses and the investigations made, she was acting on her own free will, in our opinion.
Up in Hillsborough, California, hearing their daughter described no longer as a witness, but as a criminal now, the Hearsts had this to say.
I just hope everybody will remember that physically Patty is still a kidnapped victim. She was taken away against her will. And psychologically, she's a victim of thought control by terrorists. I hope she'll give herself up and come home.
She is believed still in or around Los Angeles. Police, for the last couple of days, have been moving from stakeout to stakeout, following one lead, then another, trying to find her and the few other SLA members who remain.
I want to talk about the way I knew our 6 murdered comrades, because the fascist pig media has, of course, been painting a typically distorted picture of these beautiful sisters and brothers. Sim Q loved the people with tenderness and respect. He helped me see that it's not how long we live that's important, it's how we live. Jelena was beautiful. She exploded with a desire to kill the pig. She taught me how to fight the enemy within through her constant struggle with bourgeois conditioning. Gabi practiced until her shotgun was an extension of her right and left arms. She taught me the patience and discipline necessary for survival and victory. Zoya, female guerilla, perfect love and perfect hate reflected in stone-cold eyes. Faiza was a beautiful sister who taught me to shoot first and make sure the pig is dead before splitting, and I'll always love her. Cujo was the gentlest, most beautiful man I've ever known. Neither Cujo or I had ever loved an individual the way we loved each other. Our relationship's foundation was our commitment to the struggle and our love for the people. It's because of this that I still feel strong and determined to fight. Our comrades didn't die in vain. The pig lies about the advisability of surrender have only made me more determined. I renounced my class privilege when Sin and Cujo gave me the name Tanya. While I have no death wish, I have never been afraid of death. For this reason, the brainwashed duress theory of the pig Hearst has always amused me. Life is very precious to me, but I have no delusions that going to prison will keep me alive. And I would never choose to live the rest of my life surrounded by pigs like the Hearsts. Death to the fascist insect that preys upon the life of the people.
Well, what do you think about that, Doc? That shocked the hell out of me.
I've been trying to tell you over and over again, y'all sleeping on these white radicals. When they look here, you want you some hitters, get you some white folk involved in your movement. Okay. They look here. You heard them. They ain't playing. She taught me to shoot a pig and make sure he dead before I leave. They ain't just talking. And you heard her talk about the bourgeoisie, her class privilege, and this and that. Yeah, that's what these 60s identity politic radicals are talking about. They're talking about class struggle. They're talking about forget about race and just concentrate your energies upon those who have all the money and those who are protecting that money, the police and the government. Yeah, that's who succinctly, that's who the radicals are. And it's the reason. And if you look at groups like that, it makes sense that they would fall in with the Black Liberation Army. It makes sense that they would fall in with the Panthers. But even they a little too wild for the Panthers. Huey would have said, whoa, no, we can't, but that's who they are. I'm telling you, white folk, by and large, are not going to stand up and put up with, look at their entire history, okay? When you're talking about the American Revolution, what do these colonists say? We will not be the slaves of Britain. Mm-hmm. They went to war against the modern day Rome and kicked their ass. And that's why, the idea of Black folk not wanting to have an ally with white folk, you have no idea of how some of these white folk, when they mind go awry, how it go awry, they become monsters, unstoppable. Think about John Brown. You can't sleep on all of them. You at least hear them out and be prepared to do things your way and on your own always. I'm not saying give them control of any semblance of the African American freedom struggle, but I am saying that, hey, you might not want to nail that door shut, because what you saw there is not the exception to the rule.
Mm. Well, one thing for sure, they was about that life. They was about that life.
Yeah, really think about what they did, and had one rebellious slave, Q, leading them. You go back, and if you look at Charles Manson, Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter was about causing a race war.
Right.
Manson said Black people are physically stronger, so they're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And then after they win, Black people can't get along, so I'm going to be the last living white man that's going to be the tiebreaker to decide on who's going to run things or not. So it's when this whole idea of Black August, the idea of prisoner rights, the idea of insurrection within America. It's not just a Black idea. It's an idea that really motivates quite a few of these white radicals. Now, my question once again is, where are they today?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part of me that believes that they had tattoo shops and shit, and ride motorcycles, and are not as politicized as they were back then. But when you were talking about Cal Berkeley, you're talking about the San Francisco area, you're talking about LA, even some parts of Chicago, every major urban city that had a large university, you're going to find some white radicals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's who they are.
Definitely. Yeah, I know. And I go back to this because this is the only time that I've ever spoken, at a majority white audience during the where everybody was having the George Floyd rallies, and we were still up in Illinois. And I went out to a couple of them and spoke, and it was, majority white folk. And I got to part of my speech where I was telling them, y'all want to be called allies. Well, you can't be called an ally because you show up at a protest. That don't make you no ally. You want to be an ally, you got to be like John Brown. You got to kill some crackers, period, point blank.
Yeah.
You got to be ready to fight everything that you got. That's how you become an ally. If you ain't doing that, you ain't even about that life. And they started to repeat in a chant what I was saying. And it scared me because I'm like, what the hell? You know, I ain't never had that happen to me before. You know, in the middle of a speech, they start chanting what I'm saying. And I'm like, what in the hell? You know?
Yeah, I mean, if you went to a Black Panther Party rally after what, 67, 68, you had nothing but white folk there. You know, it's what Fred Hampton is talking about: black power for black people, brown power for brown people, white power for white people. You know, you have to have at least some coalition, some alliance with other radical minded people, and that's where the rubber meets the road. You know, and if you cordon yourself all solely within the what we call black essentialism, that you're black and, you know, there's something special about being that, so special that you won't forge an alliance with other people who see the world through the same lens that you do and want to make some significant alterations, then you're probably going to lose. You know, look at, and it's one of the reasons why I love reading message boards. I spend hours on Yahoo's message boards. I'll find a story and then I'll just read what people are saying about it. You'll be shocked to see what white folk are saying about Donald Trump. You know, they ain't all Trump supporters. They ain't all MAGA. You know, but they do have a ultra sensitivity to issues like reparations and things like that. They ain't ready to support that. You know, and you can trace that right back to the fact that they're poor people too. They're working class too, and they feel as if they're being jilted and cheated. Because if black folk get reparations, then where ours at?
Nah, well, if they ain't for reparations, they ain't for us. That's how I look at it.
Well, I mean, like Huey said, use them for what they're good for. You know, if they're willing to do, we can work together on 3 out of the 10 issues facing Black America. Let's work together on those 3. Those other 7, y'all, we're strangers. You don't have to give them control, like Malcolm used to say. That when a white man come around, he says, "I'm boss," that means he the one that's gonna run things. Nah, that ain't what we talking about, player.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like the what is that group that the American government keep trying to call them terrorists? Well, the Republicans and some Democrats try to call them terrorists. Mm-hmm. It's a white group. And they come out when the protests come out, and they'll burn shit down.
Yeah, you're talking about these cats are anarchists.
Yeah,
I know the group that you're talking about.
Okay, so them now, I do like them. I like them a lot. I like what they do. Go for it, tear the shit up, fight them crackers, do whatever you need to do. And
it's not the Proud Boys.
No, not the Proud Boys. Not Proud Boys. There's another name. I forget, man.
You're getting old, bro.
What are they called? Man, and I did a video talking about them too.
Antifa. There you go.
That's right. Thank you, Narmax. Antifa. That's who it is. I respect them. And I tell black people all the time, you see them tearing shit up, let them tear the shit up. Police come to you, say you don't know what the fuck they talking about. You don't tell on them nothing. Now, don't go join them. Don't do that. But let them do what the fuck they need to do. Police come, you turn a blind eye. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You know, just don't join them. Don't join them. Because you got your own fight. Don't join them. But we're not going to tell on them. Nah, we're not going to tell them. No, not the Proud Boys. Not the Proud Boys. Antifa. Antifa is the ones I respect. Proud Boys, we're going to see them on the battlefield and we'll have to kill their ass. Straight up. All right, Doc. We are at our 2-hour time. time for closing remarks. What would your closing remarks be if you had to address Brother George Jackson, Brother Jonathan Jackson, the Black Liberation Army, and the Symbionese Liberation Army? What would you tell them? And then also, what would you tell Patty Hearst?
I would tell the Revolutionary Brothers, good job. Good job. You know, thank you for your service, for what you've done for Black America, the example that you set, and rest well and understand that there's some of us who are still fighting on that battlefield, using you guys as our inspiration, because you truly are our heroes. You are our founding fathers. My founding fathers are not Jefferson and Lincoln and all of those in Washington. Nah, it's the Jackson brothers. It's Asada. You know, it's Mutulu. You know, so thank you. You know, I'm sure that God is going to say thank you, our good and faithful servants. Job well done. Patty Hearst, you know, get in where you fit in, Patty, because they killed your people, and you probably need to go home now. You know, just go home, shut up. And if an opportunity rises for you to funnel the revolution, some of that Hearst money, by all means do so.
Definitely. Thank you, Doc. And you know, my closing comments would be very much similar. George and Jonathan Jackson, thank you for the example that you have laid out. Thank you for the work that you have done. Thank you for loving us more than we had loved ourselves. To the Black Liberation Army and the Symbionese Liberation Army, y'all have definitely showed us a different route that has to be understood, and it has to understand that, you know, there comes a time when talk is over, and that you have to be really, really ready to go there. We learn from everything that you do. We learn from your successes, and we learn from your mistakes. We are not the same people as we were then, but we have not forgotten who you are. And the more that we learn about you, the more that we see what you have done, it inspires us even deeper, even more to go and push further, because we know freedom is right beyond that door. And we're not going to knock on that door. We're going to kick that damn door down, because that's our freedom that we will take, period, point blank. And Patty Hearst, all I got to say to you is fuck you too, because you back, I'm quite sure, enjoying your lavish life. I don't think you funneling no money down, you know, but you know, you there with your family doing your thing, so fuck you too, period, point blank, motherfucker. Shit. But as we always say, we love you, family. You kill the nigga in you, I'm gonna kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. And enjoy your Black August.
Hey, peace. Stay safe.